here, and especially glad to see our crew from Box here again. Welcome back. We have been chatting a little bit while we were in our pre-show, and I'm going to go through a few announcements, and then we will have our main program today, which is Dan Turchin, who is the CEO and founder of PeopleReign and longtime HCI member and participant, and local here, San Francisco Bay Area. He's going to talk about how leading CIOs are using AI to improve the employee experience. Dan is a regular speaker for us on this topic, on these topics related to AI. And then we'll have we'll break out into breakout rooms and discuss some of the prompts that Dan's going to give us. And then at 12:55, we're going to close and give away a couple of gift certificates. I want to start out by doing another round of applause for our local HCI award winners, which is Eric Fong from University of California at Berkeley. He was our local HCI analyst winner, and Stephen Herrera, also from University of California, Berkeley, who was our local technician, best service and support technician winner. Awards is an annual program that we have, and it will most likely, the nominations will open back up again in usually in late August, and we do local judging. Then once the local judging is complete, the local winners go on to a regional and then a national competition. And I bring this up today too to once again recognize Eric and Stephen for their nominations and for their local winners, but also because conference, which is coming up May 15th to the 17th, no dates on this slide, is where the final award winners are announced. So we do have from our Western chapters, 2 award winners from Seattle are the district winners for the Pacific West District. And they will be getting to go to conference. So for those nominees that win locally and then at the district level, and they get to go on to conference with a free pass to conference. And we did help support the Seattle winners to be able to go to conference and pay for their airfare and their hotel as well. So this is a really cool program. I think one of my favorites for HCI for many, many years. But as Dan mentioned, Support World Live is going to be live. It's in Las Vegas. It's coming up. And I'm excited to be going. Anybody else going to conference?
Terry, we actually found money to send Eric, so he'll be there.
Oh, sweet. I will look forward to meeting Eric in person. Tell him to look for me. I'm going to be, I'll be going on Tuesday, and maybe he can, when is he going?
He'll be there both days. He'll be there the whole time. Maybe, I know on their app, you can do a link and start chatting through the app.
Oh, right. Okay. Yeah, I haven't actually opened up the app yet, but that's a good point.
Yeah.
Because yes, the
I'll
app
tell
helps
him to look
to foster. Tell him to look for me. We do have some local chapter officer events that are happening on Tuesday, and maybe he can come as Sally.
Yeah, that'd be great.
Yeah, cool. Meet the other people.
A question about the nominees, the winners. Could you send some documentation, or how do you go about nominating, or what the qualifications are?
Absolutely.
Thank you.
That's Norlito.
And I
Did I
can
pronounce your name right? Yeah, you want to put it in the chat, Sally?
Sorry?
Go ahead.
I can tell you from experience that the instructions look more daunting than they really are. So don't let the instructions scare you.
True. Sally has nominated more than once, and actually Eric works for her, who won our local award this year.
Okay, thank you.
It's a great way to pat people on the back. When I was a working IT manager, I nominated my folks, and I had one of my team win a few years ago, who was an individual contributor at the time. It was great growth for him. Was a lot of fun to do all the recognition at the company level. You know, the CIO stopped by and stuff like that. And then he eventually became a supervisor. And when I retired, he became a manager. So it was great growth for him.
Awesome. Love it.
And speaking of growth, another opportunity to grow your career and have fun. We have fun, right, Sally and Larry, is to get involved with the local chapter by becoming part of our leadership council, helping us to plan these events, helping to plan the awards event, which we're very much looking forward to, an in-person award ceremony in December. Please, please, please. And other activities at the local level. Being involved at the leadership level, you really just have to be a member. It's a one-year commitment, but you know, nobody's going to break your legs if you have to step away. Also to come to our monthly board meetings, come to our chapter events like this one, which we usually have 6 a year, and to keep current on what's going on. Pretty easy minimum requirements there. So if you're interested, and we will publish these slides, it's also on our website on this page, Get Involved. Or, you know, just drop something in the chat while Dan is speaking, and we can connect that way as well. And in regards to our upcoming programs, we talked about the conference is coming May 15th to the 20th. May 25th, we are planning a program for May 25th. And it's not fully worked out as far as, but the general topic is going to be about career paths and certifications, and how we're going to have a few examples of people who have gone on this career path and where their career path has taken them, from service operations into an engineer position, program management, a process manager, program manager. So we have a couple of people that we've lined up. Jason is one of the people working on this program, as well as Christine Vo from Robert Half. So it's going to be good, May 25th. So look, you'll get that in email. We're hoping to do something social this summer, in person. I'm talking with a couple of vendors about the possibility of sponsoring a social activity in the Bay Area. So I'm hopeful that we will do that. And then in the fall, we are definitely looking forward to a return to an in-person meeting, have some talks with a couple of locations locally to do that in-person event. I think we will continue to provide a hybrid approach for those. One, it's a long drive from Santa Cruz to San Francisco for me, but we will continue to do hybrid because we've all, you know, it has so much value. But we also will look forward to being in person. And with that, unless we have any questions, I don't see anything, we will transition to our program, which is Dan Turchin. So Dan, as I mentioned, is a recurring guest at our local events here, and always has lots of interesting things to share. And today, he's going to share some work that PeopleReign has done in how CIOs, we all want to know what the CIOs think, right? How CIOs are working on this thing that's referred to as the Great Resignation, or what did you call it, Larry? The Great Revitalization. So Dan, go ahead.
Absolutely. Terry, if you could give me sharing control.
Oh, there you go.
Good. And because I can't talk and think at the same time, give me 10 seconds while I cut over. Terry, it still says host disabled participant screen sharing.
Oh, let me look at my security, sorry.
No problem.
Yes, check that box. Okay, should be checked now.
That's better. And we're going to do an AV check. What are you seeing?
I see your screen, PeopleReign.
That's a good start. Okay. Well, always good to be presenting at HDI events. This is a family reunion of sorts. And for those that Terry and I don't know, welcome to the family. Like you heard in the intro when we were in the prep session, Terry and I know a handful of you go back with HDI a lot of years. It's been good to us. It's been gratifying to see this community grow and evolve and thrive. By way of background, I have been in and around the space of applying AI and machine learning to employee service for, gosh, about 25 years. I'll date myself. PeopleReign's the 7th company that I've started or been a founding member of in and around this space. There was a time in the 90s when we couldn't even dream as big as the kind of things that we do on a daily basis now at PeopleReign. But today, we're not going to be talking too much about AI for employee service or about PeopleReign for that matter specifically. What today is call it the global unveiling of a summary of results from an exhaustive research study that we conducted primarily in Q4 of 2021 with 250 CIOs. And to stimulate the conversation that we'll have in a bit in the form of breakouts, Terry and Larry and I had thought it might be useful for me to summarize some of the findings, and then we'll hand off the discussion to you. You're the experts, but I will share with you some of the themes from what we heard about the future of work, and specifically about what some great CIOs are doing to combat the Great Resignation, or like Terry alluded to, what we prefer to talk about as transforming the Great Resignation into the Great Reawakening. That's the theme of today's discussion, and I'm going to start by asking a big question. Why are we here now? I don't mean why are we at today's HDI talk. I mean, like, really, like, why are we here? Why are you here? And specifically, it's kind of a way to get the gears turning for the breakout discussion we're going to have in a few minutes. I'd ask you to ask yourself these 3 questions. Why are you on the planet? What's existential to you? How do you derive energy? How do you define success? As we talk about the results of this survey, and as we channel kind of what it's like to be an employee for a large employer in this day and age, coming out of a pandemic, we're all asking ourselves these kinds of questions. And more than ever, if we don't have good answers, if we can't really justify this massive investment that we make in ourselves at work, and if somehow there's some kind of cognitive dissonance that's created by a disconnect between what we're asked to do by our employer and what really matters to us as humans, then it's likely we're going to start to think about what comes next. What's my next opportunity? Where can I go that will truly be fulfilling for all parts of me? Because when I come to work these days, I really want to be the best version of myself, the best version of a human, the best colleague, but also I want that experience I have at work to transcend work so that when I go home, I'm the best spouse, the best parent, the best friend. I feel like I'm doing work that presents the best version of who I am. And so think about that as we're thinking about the feedback that I'll share with you and thinking about what's going through the minds of our employees. Keep these 3 questions at the top of your mind. Now, one way to frame this discussion is by applying what we call the EX, or employee experience maturity model, to your work and to how you lead as your team and in your organization. And the thing that this employee experience model captures effectively is that the employee experience, it turns out, is very tightly connected to the experience that your customers or that your users beyond the 4 walls of your company have. So what we want to do is think about how to take every employee to the right on that maturity curve, from the point where they feel motivated and inspired to be ambassadors of your brand. They want to celebrate the mission and the vision and the values of your company. And if you're doing that, you're going to find that that's the single biggest way to influence the way your customers feel about your brand and your mission, and the single biggest way to make them become vocal evangelists for your service as opposed to just users. So with that as a framework, I'm going to talk through some of what we learned when we surveyed these 250 global CIOs. Now, what I thought I'd do for today's discussion is, rather than get into a lot of the quantitative data, I realized that as I was asking some of the questions to frame this discussion, some of the qualitative data is actually more insightful. It's all backed, it's a very comprehensive research report that we're happy to share afterward, but some of the anecdotes that came up time and again in the surveys that we received, I think are particularly insightful. So first off, one of the main themes from our survey is, what do we expect from work? And what we learned wasn't always consistent with what we expected to hear. And so I'm going to summarize some of the themes. So 5 of the themes that came up over and over again. I expect a sense of purpose from my work. This survey was conducted again over about a 6-month period in late 2021. We heard over and over again themes related to, I want flexible work hours, because increasingly, in order to feel like I'm really engaged at work, I need my employer to appreciate that my situation changed. The top 3 kind of meta theme was, I want a manager who understands my personal situation. All of a sudden, I just became my kid's homeschooling parent. I'm taking care of elderly parents. I now have additional constraints on my time. I'm just as committed to my work life as ever, but I need a little bit of flexibility that I didn't realize was as important to me, let's say pre-pandemic. I want to work with colleagues who share my values. So I want to feel like I'm aligned with not just the profit motive of my organization, but really with the mission and the vision, and also with the values. And I expect to work with colleagues who share my value system. I want to know that my employer respects my time. So one of the themes I'll talk a little bit more in a bit is this theme of, whenever I'm stranded in a queue waiting on hold for something that seems to me like it should be a simple answer, I feel devalued. That's what demotivates me. When I'm treated like a ticket, I don't feel like I'm really willing to put in that extra hour at work. I feel like a cog in a wheel, and that's what demotivates me. And that's when I feel like I'm kind of disengaged. And when we unpack some of this feedback, it's pretty easy to draw a direct connection between the difference between the Great Resignation and the Great Reawakening. So a lot of today's discussion is really about, how do we turn some of these meta themes, some of these attitudes that our employees increasingly have at work, into opportunities to increase employee engagement. The next set of questions we asked were related to, what are some of these underlying themes that are driving this now cliched Great Resignation? And before I get into the data, I want to share one slide. Now, if you were at the lightning talk from a few weeks back, I shared like literally a 5-minute version of this, and the next slide was actually in that lightning talk. But I thought to frame this up, it might be useful to share the Great Resignation by the numbers. This number is the number of US workers who quit their job in the 4th quarter of 2021 alone. It's about 10x the rate that historically we've seen that number. 74% of full-time job seekers, this is also Q4 of 2021, said they plan to quit in the next year. That's an astonishingly high number. 58% of workers say they're actively looking to change jobs. 76% of workers say they want more flexibility in where they work. 93% of workers say they want more flexibility in when they work, consistent with the feedback from the previous slide. Couple that with the fact that unemployment is at a historical low. It's under 4%. And oh, by the way, inflation is up above 7%, historical high. So my paycheck's going less far than it has in the past. There are more opportunities that I have to get a bigger paycheck elsewhere. It's easier for me to migrate to another opportunity than ever. And all the while, I'm questioning what I really expect from my employer. So mix all of this together and you get this environment where we see record numbers of employees being destabilized and starting to get what we call a wandering eye. But there's an opportunity in all of this. And if we understand some of the underlying motivations and the underlying kind of macro factors that are leading to this high level of resignation, we can also flip those on their ear and think more about what we can do as employers, as leaders, to bring our employees closer to the organization and to demonstrate that we value them, we respect them, we trust them. And that's how to turn the Great Resignation into the Great Reawakening. So some of the themes that came up time and again. So when we asked, what are the reasons why you're thinking, 74% of you are thinking about quitting in the next year. My manager is not helping me grow. Always a dangerous sign. Our work policies don't support my home life. My home situation changed, but my work situation didn't. Our work culture is toxic. I feel like there's things I can't say. Part of who I am I can't proudly display when I'm at work. It takes too long to get answers. This is perhaps one of the items in this summary that I'm going to share that's most germane to this crew. So when we talk about the goal of us as service providers, we're looking to deliver exceptional employee experiences. And it's so important, it's so essential to delivering better employee experiences that we think about how to reduce the friction that exists between employees and the services that we provide as internal service providers. Simple HR requests, whether it's a PTO request or I need to understand when I'm gonna get my tax forms, or simple IT requests. I need to reset my password. I need access to Slack or Zoom. I'm locked out of an account. These are routine issues. And when we look at industry-wide, the average time to resolve any issue, even the most mundane issue like a password reset, it's 2.5 hours. We can do better. We can absolutely do better. And every minute, 15 minutes, 30 minutes, hour that we're able to shave off of that MTTR translates directly into a message that we're sending to employees that they matter. We value their time. We trust them. We want them to do more of the work that they love doing and spend less time doing the things they hate doing. Turns out in the top 6 reasons why people quit, that shows up right in the top few. I'm treated like a number. So we need to think about a post-ticketing world where every employee is treated like a human and a human we value. And ironically, what you'll see in an upcoming slide is when we introduce more automation, more intelligence into the process, we actually humanize the service experience. Lastly, of the top 6, I no longer feel aligned with our company values. So what leadership says versus what I see leadership doing isn't always congruent. And so one of the best ways that you can demonstrate that you have a work environment where you embrace the whole employee, you celebrate diversity, you reward success, is by acting in ways that you expect your employees to act, and by demonstrating a leadership culture by acting your values, living your values. So we next asked these CIOs, what does smart service mean to you? Now we're getting into some more of the substance or some more of the actionable tips, which I'll summarize in a bit. But when we asked these CIOs to define smart service, we didn't define it more broadly than that. We were curious to know what the response would be. This was a summary of the results that we heard. So smart service is when employees never need to enter the same information twice. Perhaps that's obvious, perhaps it should go without saying. But if you look at the underlying data, 92% of organizations say they violate this #1 rule that they themselves say is the most essential component of delivering exceptional service experience. And this is where you can start to think about introducing automation, introducing intelligence into the service process. When all of the ambient signals from the enterprise are incorporated into the life cycle of a service request, you're going to find that you have everything you need to prevent employees from feeling like the process has turned them into robots. You actually humanize the life cycle when you take what you know about the employee and the service requests and feed that into the smart process so that they're never asked to enter the same information twice. We feel like, you know, in an environment where there's no waiting on hold, a post-ticket world, that's where employees are most engaged. We expect smart service to mean the right answer gets delivered the first time. Just imagine a world where FCR, first call resolution rate, is 100%. I know that seems aspirational, or you know, certainly for those of us who have been in this space as long as Terry and Larry and I have, that's something that, you know, has always been a pipe dream. You can achieve that. When you think about delivering on the promise of smart service, that's actually within reach. I expect my service provider to speak my language. So in order to make employees feel like they're first-class citizens, it's really important to make sure that the right support is available in their native language whenever they need it. Don't close the ticket until my problem's fixed. Too often, we have a culture that's focused on IT metrics as opposed to the user experience. And when we close the ticket prematurely because we want to get credit for an SLA, we're thinking about what's best for IT and we stop thinking about what's best for the employee. We want to make sure that not only are we thinking beyond the ticket, because that's an artificial artifact. That artifact is something that lets IT track its metrics. But when we think about what the employee experience is like, we think about what it means to deliver smart service. And then lastly, let me know what's going to go wrong, ideally before it goes wrong. So if you know there's going to be planned maintenance, or if you know there's a slowdown and maybe payroll is going to be delayed, or I can't get on Wi-Fi for an hour, just let me know. It's okay. I understand. Things happen and I appreciate that. But if my employer is better at communicating with me and helping me understand when there might be a disruption to my service, well, that's an environment where I feel like my time's valued, and I feel like you know, I no longer have to get really apprehensive when some service goes away and I have no visibility. Even though sometimes IT has visibility, if I don't, all of a sudden I don't know what to expect in terms of how much of a productivity hit I'll take. So smart service means proactively communicating the status of key services to employees. And I thought I'd pull in this slide as well. This is actually directly from the survey. I thought this is appropriate as we're gonna go into a breakout discussion in a bit, but I want you to see what your peers said when we asked what's the relative priority of these capabilities of a system of intelligence. So smart service is commonly associated with these new systems of intelligence that sit in between a system of record and a system of collaboration. Typically, we think about a system of intelligence as figuring out what work needs to get done and then doing the work, and then feeding the output of the work, the artifact, into a system of record. The system of record is typically a traditional ITSM system is there to capture the artifact associated with the work that's been done. But the system of intelligence is there to figure out what work to do and automatically do the work, take the action. So when we looked at across a handful, 10 or so key capabilities of a system of intelligence, you can see here what's green is when these CIOs said this is a high priority. So not surprisingly, the top vote getters in terms of these capabilities are high priority, accuracy of the AI, so making sure I trust the decisions that are being made and automated. Security, obviously that's no surprise. The other two were interesting. So ease of implementation. So we expect to be able to do this without a team of data scientists. It should be a logical extension of our internal processes. In fact, self-learning. It should be smart enough that it learns from what we've done historically so that it understands our best practices and builds on data, decisions, content, expert knowledge that's already embedded in the system of record. So you get a sense of, I'm not sure any of this is shocking, but how the key capabilities of a system of intelligence map to those responses that I showed a minute ago in terms of what CIOs defined as attributes of smart service. And again, happy to share with you the full report if that's of interest, but I did want to at least summarize some of the key findings and then leave you with some of the underlying data. So we aggregated a lot of the learning that we did from these 250 CIOs into a set of actionable tips, specifically 5 of them. And so we refer to this as a pyramid view of exactly what the best leaders are doing to incorporate these elements of smart service to deliver a better employee experience and ultimately to turn those themes of the Great Resignation into a Great Awakening. So the pyramid that leads directly to what we will casually call the employee experience nirvana. So a few things that are actionable that the best leaders do. Well, this one comes as no surprise. They not only ask their employees for feedback, but they listen. So they ask questions that came up. You saw in the previous set of results or set of feedback, set of anecdotes that I shared, a lot of what can be done to address apprehension that's leading to these resignations, like just asking your team, what do you expect from work? What matters to you? What's existential to you? How do you derive energy? What can we do to better support your changing needs? Listen when they speak. Be prepared to communicate that you've heard them. Be prepared to make changes to your policies. Adapt to the needs of your employees because their needs are adapting. Use one-on-ones to demonstrate that you value the whole employee. So employees really want to know that you care about them. When they say, I think one of the top 2 issues that employees cited that leads to them feeling demotivated at work is they don't feel like their managers support their personal or professional growth. Start every one-on-one with, how are you? And I don't mean what's the status of your project. I don't mean show me your Trello board. I mean, how are you? How are things? I understand there are new stresses in your life. What can I do to help you be your best self at work? Show that you're human as well. It's okay to be vulnerable. You know, it's okay if your pet is in the background of your Zoom call or your kids, because we're all humans first. And letting your employees know that you're human as well and being willing to be vulnerable goes a long way. Celebrate the small wins. It's amazing how maybe this is something that's obvious, but oftentimes as leaders, we don't always espouse this in terms of our daily processes. So take every opportunity to celebrate small wins. And maybe that's, you know, a customer milestone. Maybe it's delivering a feature. Maybe it's just a successful sprint where you hit all the stories in the backlog. It may seem small, but in terms of creating a culture where you're celebrating the whole employee and making employees feel valued and trusted and respected, it goes a long way. Number 4, go out of your way to reward success. So it really can do a lot to make an employee feel like they're in an environment where they're ready to be reawakened, where they're ready to reawaken others. When they feel like when they've achieved something, no matter how small it is, they're acknowledged for it. So maybe it's something that they've done outside work. This may seem crazy from all of us who may have been raised in a different leadership culture. Let's say your team member's kid gets into college, celebrate it. Let them know that, that's part of the whole person, and that whole person is going to feel better, and they're going to feel more, they're going to feel safer at work when you acknowledge things that are part of who they are outside work. We're looking to achieve not just work-life balance, but what we now call life-work integration. Part of what we call bringing your whole self to work is knowing that it's okay. It's okay to integrate your life and your work, because increasingly the boundaries between life and work are blurring, and that's okay. If we want to really feel like we can create flexible work hours and flexible work environments, then it's important to let employees know that we expect an intense commitment to work. That doesn't have to change. We still have very high standards for your output, but we also support that your life situation may have changed, and we have to acknowledge that we're embracing that. When we talk about the other aspect of life-work integration, the other thing is we want to incorporate practices and policies and benefits into the workplace that demonstrate, not just with our words, but with our actions and our policies, that we believe in the value of your well-being. And so that might mean something as simple as, offering access to mental health resources, or being the first one to say, we're going to block an hour or 2 hours or some amount of time a week where you're off camera, or where, not only will we not schedule Zoom calls, but as leaders, we say, I'm just going to have office hours, and anything you want to talk about, any topic that's on your mind, I'm going to be available for you this time. And I'm going to ask, everyone on the leadership team to do the same, so that that anytime, whether it's something related to life or work or a combination of the two, if something's different on your end and you just need a little bit of coaching, a little bit of a pep talk, I'm here for you as a leader. These are the attributes of a culture where your employees want to stay. And before we talk about some of the key topics for the breakout, I want to call out something that you might not have caught in the previous slides, but I went through the top 6 reasons why employees feel demotivated. And I went through the attributes of cultures that have the lowest attrition rate. And if you'll recall, one of the things that was missing on any of those lists was anything involving compensation. And when we ran this survey, that surprised us, because we assumed that things related to compensation and benefits were actually why employees were leaving in droves. It turns out they're not. Employees genuinely want to be in a place where they feel trusted, valued, and respected. And if you go out of your way to demonstrate leadership or situational awareness through leadership practices like the ones on this pyramid slide, I guarantee you that you'll have a much bigger impact on engaging and motivating and inspiring your employees than anything that you could do related to giving them a raise. A raise is a one-time activity that demonstrates you think you can buy the loyalty of your employees. But I'll tell you something, in the face of increasing unemployment and some of those stats that I mentioned, increasing inflation, what you'll find is that it's very easy for employees to jump to another employer that will pay them more. Just rewarding them with pay is not enough. And in fact, as you can see, it doesn't show up in the top handful of reasons. So think first about ways you can improve life-work integration, celebrate the whole employee, do the other things before thinking you can buy their loyalty by increasing their pay or giving them a gym subsidy. Those may be nice things to do, and those also demonstrate that you care about the employee, but those are more reactive to being afraid employees will leave. These things on this slide are more activities that are proactive, that demonstrate you celebrate your team and you're invested in creating a culture that motivates employees to stay. So with that said, we have a few questions that we wanted to team up, because you're the stars of the show. I just wanted to share with you some of the results and some of the insights that we learned from talking to your peers. But this is HDI. We interact with each other, we grow with each other, we learn from each other. And so what we're gonna do next is ask you as the stars of the show 4 questions. And before I go through these, Terry, is this size group one where we want to do the breakout together, or do you want to split the group into multiple subgroups?
Well, if I look at it, we could have 3 groups of 4-ish folks. So I think that would be good. Okay.
Then before we break everyone out, let me just tee up these questions. And then in your breakouts, Terry will put you into breakouts. And what we want you to do is talk about what you're doing to improve the employee experience. How do you measure employee engagement? What's one process you could automate to reduce downtime? And perhaps most important, what's your #1 request? If the CIO or even maybe your CIO came to you and said, what can we do as a leadership team to reduce attrition? What's your answer? And then Terry, time permitting, if it's okay, I'd like to bring back everyone for the last, say, 5 to 7 minutes and have a quick readout.
How long do you?
Terry,
We're losing people as I'm creating. Yeah,
Okay.
I went the wrong direction there.
So if you could, we'll take
losing
about
people
10
as
minutes.
I create the breakout.
Okay.
10 minutes. Okay.
10 minutes for this, and then we'll come back as a group.
Maybe we'll just do 2 breakouts because as I said, we're losing folks. And hang on, I got to do a little balancing here. Okay, got 2 breakouts, and here we go.